Yo, what is up, guys? It's IFM here, and I am bringing you a critical match in the World Cup of Pokemon. We have Reiku versus Sam, and this match is going to be Central versus Spain. Currently, Spain has a 5-4 lead after bringing it back from a 4-3 deficit, ripping off 2 quick victories to put them in this situation. Sam needs to pull out a victory to, create a tiebreak situation. And if not, then Reiku is just going to take the win for Spain, and they're going to move on to the onto the semifinals. So this is quarterfinal action, Sam versus Reiku, and you can see that Reiku has a pretty offensive team, running one of my favorite Pokemon, Mamoswine. And on the other hand, Sam is doing the same. Got the Mega Aerodactyl, also has the Sheer Force for Alligator. This is going to be a great matchup, and now we are just waiting on the players to make their lead choices and get into this game. If I'm Reiku, I'm thinking that the Mamoswine has a great matchup against Sam's team because it messes up the Aerodactyl, the Latios, the Heatran, and the Landorus T. Really only has to worry about the Feraligatr and obviously the Clefable tanking its attacks. On the other hand, Reiku doesn't really have a whole lot of resist to this Heatran outside of the Keldeo, though if this is the Assault Vest Tornadus, it's going to be able to tank hits quite easily. Still has to worry about a burn from Lava Plume or something like that. So we're just going to wait for the leads and just get ready for some great World Cup of Pokemon action, because this match is deciding the fate of 2 different teams. Are we going to see our first tiebreaker of the tournament after East and Germany won quite easily? And we still have a couple more matches coming on later between Oceania and West. And West is currently up in that series. But as you can see, Reiku does go for the Keldeo, as it does a lot of work against Sam's team. It can threaten Scald Burns on the Latios and the Feraligatr if they try to stay on a Scald. But the issue is that this is some kind of special defensive Clefable. It's not going to be doing a whole lot to it. There's something like a Choice Spec set, obviously with a Scald, could do a whole hell of a lot of damage. So he just decides to get the Keldeo in early and just start fishing for the Scald Burns. And Sam goes with the Feraligatr, predicting something maybe like the Mamoswine lead, because as I was saying before, it is very effective against Sam's team. But unfortunately, this lead matchup is going to put him on the back foot, as he does not want to be taking anything like a Spec Secret Sword. So I'm expecting him to switch out just into his Clefable right here, and Reiku can probably read that. Would be a great time to switch in something like the Metagross, get a little bit of damage up on Sam's team, or he could just go for some Scald Burns, or maybe even a Specs Hydro Pump into the Clefable, as I do believe that would KO in 2 hits, but it obviously relies on A, it being Specs, and B, it, doing a whole hell fuck ton of damage. So anyways, we're going to see the Scald going into the Latios, and it does not Kevin Cronin it. So Latios is sitting pretty at 67% health, though it's not going to be wanting to take too many of those, especially with the 30% burn chance every single turn. So Sam's got to play to mitigate as many switches in that this Keldeo can have, because it's going to do a whole hell of a lot of work to his team, though this does give him the opportunity to just fire off a Psyshock or recover back up, because like I said, it doesn't really want to be switching into this too much. And I think based on that damage, it probably is going to be the Spec set, but I don't have a calculator on me at the moment, so we're just going to assume that, because I currently think that Specs is probably the best set in this metagame. It just fucks up so many things, and it's just a great overall wall breaker, and it does amazing work against a lot of different team types. So Metagross is going to be switching into this Latios, as it does fire off a Psyshock, and the Metagross is going to take jack shit. It's going to be sitting at 89% health after that, and it's just going to get an opportunity to start firing off a couple attacks into Sam's team, and hitting the Landers maybe with something like a Meteor Mash, or it can even try to go for a predicted Heatran switch and fire off the Hammer Arm, though I'm not very much expecting that to happen. And the other key point of that is we see the Life Orb damage on the Latios. So now it's sitting at 57% health, and if you get Stealth Rocks up, it's going to be very difficult for that to check the Keldeo in the future. And obviously it can't take the time to recover right now, because if you get Stealth Rocks up, then obviously Latios is going to be the defogger. So there's not going to be any way to mitigate the Stealth Rocks beyond the Latios itself. So it's going to have to switch into Stealth Rocks. It's going to have to switch into Scalds. And a combination of a Scald plus Stealth Rock damage plus a Scald Burn would just straight kill the Latios. And it would also be very difficult for it to defog on that Keldeo as well, because it would have to risk a 50-50 with a second Scald just killing it, as opposed to, either going for the Psyshock or the Recover to try to get rid of the damage. And it's not going to be able to recover off Scalds extremely well, because as you see from the first turn, it did 33% health to it. So if you count in that Scald is going to burn eventually, after that, it's going to be doing a whole hell of a lot of damage, but we see a big play here from Sam. Goes for the Draco Meteor on the Metagross. We see it is Pursuit Metagross, and combined with that critical hit, it's going to take the Metagross down very low to 21% health, but the issue is he has now completely lost his Keldeo switch-in. He's got to hope that he has a special defensive Clefable sitting in the back, or else this thing is just going to wreck face on his team, as his only water resist is the Feraligatr, and you do not want to be taking any damage on that, because if you do, it's just not going to be able to perform its job well at all. And you see the Landorus Therian coming in. It does check Metagross quite easily, unless it's something extremely rare like an Ice Punch Metagross. Well, actually, that's decently common now. People are starting to pick it up as a tech to deal with this Landorus Therian, but he can't really worry about that right now. And he's just going to try to take the opportunity to get Stealth Rocks up and start limiting the switches of the Tornadus T, of the Metagross, because it's already low. Doesn't have a whole lot of switch-ins left, even though it does resist the Stealth Rock. And obviously, if this is Sash Mamoswine, which it quite possibly could be, make sure to break that Sash with the hazards. But the issue is he can probably just switch the Mamoswine directly in if he doesn't predict an Earthquake from the Landorus Therian, or he could, go for the Tornadus if he's not predicting a Stone Edge. The issue is Raikou does not have a whole lot of good switch-ins to Landorus Therian. He is running the good old no ground resist except for something that gets fucked by Stone Edge team. So he has to really play this carefully against the Landorus and try to get chip damage on it as much as possible, because Landorus could be putting in a lot of work, as he can really, honestly though, once it starts getting some damage up a little bit, he can check it quite easily with the Mamoswine, but until that point comes, it's not going to be one-hitting with Ice Shard or anything like that. And we do see the U-turn from the Landorus Therian, probably keying us into the fact that this is most likely going to be a Scarf set. So Sam is going to have to play the prediction game a little bit to get the damage off. But as soon as this Landorus Therian is dealt with, it's going to be quite easy for him to just continuously fire off Earthquakes with it. So now, though, he's probably just going to switch into his Aerodactyl, as it deals with Tornadus quite easily. And Aerodactyl is another thing that could do a fair bit of work depending on the moveset. If he has an Ice Fang, that'll do just massive damage, but instead just goes to the Clefable, though it does risk getting knocked off right here. But he does have the opportunity to just throw out either a free Stealth Rock or a free Thunder Wave, depending on the set he's running. He could also go for something like a Calm Mind and get his stats boosted up. So Raikou has to take that into consideration right here, because if this Tornadus, gets paralyzed by the Clefable, that is just going to be a massive pain in the ass later on in the game, as it would make it a lot easier for Sam to sweep with something like the Feraligatr. Because I do believe, actually, I should really know these calcs a little better, but I think that Tornadus might even outspeed a Feraligatr at +1. Not 100% sure on that, but it's really just going to come down to what he thinks this Clefable set is. Because you could either see the Stealth Rocks on the Clefable, or you could see the Stealth Rocks on the Heatran. And as you can see, this is going to be the Moonblast fired out. Most definitely going to be a bulky Assault Vest version of the Tornadus Therian, as that did nothing. And he did get the leftovers knocked off of the Celebi, so it's going to have a much harder time trying to check the Clefable, as now it's not going to get the passive 6.2% no matter what every single turn. And the Clefable, without that, it just doesn't check the Scalds quite as well, because Scald's just such a powerful move, and there's obviously a chance that it could even 2-hit KO, but you see the Hurricane fired off. Another Moonblast is going to get thrown out into the Tornadus Therian, and going to do a little bit of damage to it. Most likely not going to be Thunder Wave or the Stealth Rocks on that, as it hasn't gone for either move yet. Probably going to be something like a Flamethrower on that Clefable, and that moveset does a lot of work against Raiku's team, but he is able to get the Metagross in for free there, and it's just going to be able to start throwing out a little bit more damage. Only really got one more turn to work with this, though, as it's not going to be able to switch in again on anything except for a hazard move, as pretty much every single attack in the game right now is going to be killing the Metagross. So it's decent right now for Sam, though he wasn't really extremely worried about the Metagross, as he still does have the Landorus Therian to check it extremely hard. Though he has to worry about a predicted Landorus switch-in right now into the Ice Punch, as that could be doing a lot of damage to it. And right now he wants to keep his Landorus Therian as healthy as possible, so it's staying out of Ice Shard range from the from the Mamoswine, as Heatran switches in on the Meteor Mash. Not going to do any damage at all, though he doesn't want to take damage on this because he needs it to stay healthy so it can check the Tornadus as well as possible, as well as check the Clefable as well as possible. Though it obviously has to worry about Clefable just setting up Calm Minds in its face if it's not the taunt set. So this is most likely going to be the Stealth Rocker for Sam, so I could see him either making a double into the Landorus Therian, predicting the Hammer Arm getting thrown out, or just going for the rocks on a pretty bold prediction. And as you can see, Landorus Therian does come out, takes absolutely massive damage from that Meteor Mash, going to take it down to 25% health. That was a great prediction there from Reiku. He didn't really have a whole lot to lose by going for a second Meteor Mash, because this Metagross is pretty much dead in the water anyways, and if he could get a whole fuck ton of damage out on it with a with a Meteor Mash into the Landorus, it's just going to put in massive work. And as you can see, now this Metagross has basically killed two Pokemon, as it was able to Pursuit kill the Latios and able to take the Landorus down to an extremely low level of health. And another great prediction there by Reiku, able to switch the Tornadus in on that Landorus Earthquake, and this matchup is heavily in his favor at this point. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Sam to pull this victory out, because right now he's just down two Pokemon already, and he doesn't have a whole lot of momentum on his side, as now he has to switch something into the Hurricane, most likely going to be the Clefable once again. But that just gives Sam the opportunity to make a switch into something like the Metagross maybe for free, as he's forced to recover on that. Instead, it's going to be the Aerodactyl coming in, but Aerodactyl not going to be super threatening to Raiku's team, because he still has the Mamoswine that's going to be able to threaten it with Ice Shards, or maybe even tank a hit and kill it with an Icicle Crash. Or you have the Clefable that's not going to be probably not going to be getting 2-hit KO'd by this Aerodactyl, and the Garchomp, which just checks it straight up, especially if it is a bulky Stealth Rock set, which it's looking very likely that it is. Because a bulky Garchomp, I mean, he doesn't have anything to worry about from that Aerodactyl except for an Ice Fang, which is not a super common move from the Aero unless you're worried about having to break through the Garchomp, which I don't think Sam is. But anyways, we're going to see the Aqua Tail actually, and as you can see, that does absolutely nothing to the Garchomp, and I think the Garchomp actually might have damaged the Aerodactyl back even more with the combination of Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet. And now the Stealth Rocks are up, and this game is looking dire for Sam, as now he only has 2 more switches in with the Landorus Therian, so it's not going to be doing a whole lot the rest of the game. Aerodactyl's sitting at 61% health with the Ground Weak, and he's just going to keep trying to break it with Aqua Tails, and just going to die to the Dragon Tail. This is going absolutely horribly for US Central right now. It's looking like they could possibly be 6-0'd by Reiku right now. And honestly, I really don't like the way that Sam has played this game. And I don't like the team that he decided to bring. I feel like it just doesn't offer you enough in terms of comeback mechanics. I feel like with this team, if you fall down, if you lose early, and like you lose your Latios, you're just dead in the water, because you have no other way of dealing with the Stealth Rocks. You have no other way of dealing with the Keldeo. And it just seems super reliant on the Latios to stay healthy. So this is why I don't really agree with his decision to go for the Psyshock on that switch into Metagross, because it just left him at 57% health, made him easy pursuit bait. Didn't even make it a 50-50 on whether he should go for a Meteor Mash or a Pursuit, and just left him pretty much dead, because no Keldeo checks left at all. nothing to deal with the Stealth Rocks. His team's just going to get chipped away, and there's not a whole hell of a lot he can do to prevent that. The only really saving grace is this Clefable could still put in a lot of work if it's able to get a couple Calm Minds up and catch the Metagross on a switch or something like that. Because once the Metagross is down, a defensive Calm Mind Clefable still has the possibility to sweep Raiku's team if it's able to get a couple boosts up and win the Clefable war against the opposing Clefable for Raiku. Though that's really, I think, the only shot that Central has left in this game. There's not a whole lot of other options they have. I mean, and as you can see, that is the Thunder Wave Clefable for Raiku, so it's going to be extremely difficult for Sam to deal with this, as he's going to have to win the Clefable war through paralysis later on in the game, if it even comes down to that. And it also is threatened by the Earthquakes being thrown out from Metagross and, sorry, not Metagross, Mamoswine, Garchomp, and the Meteor Mashes from Metagross if it's not able to catch it on a switch-in. This is going to be an opportunity to set up Stealth Rocks for Heatran. I believe the Metagross might survive a switch-in. It's saying 6% for me right now. And that's just going to depend on like how accurate Showdown is. They're kind of known as being slightly inaccurate with their calculations. So there's a chance it could survive the switch-in, chance it couldn't. It really depends on the exact percentage he's at, and only he really knows it. So Keldeo gets in on the Heatran for free. And now it's just going to be able to fire off Scalds willy-nilly and just deal massive damage to Sam's team. I think he has to sacrifice the Landorus here, as it's not going to be doing a whole lot, sitting at 25% health. Obviously, it only really can switch in 2 more times because of the Stealth Rocks. So I think he just sacrifices it and tries to get Clefable in and just start setting up Calm Minds and try to win the Calm Mind war. Because that's really his only shot. He just decides to sacrifice the Heatran instead. And this is going to give Raiku the opportunity to switch in his own Clefable on Sam's Clefable and get a Thunder Wave off for free, as his only switch into the Thunder Wave right now is the Landorus, as he doesn't want to take a Thunder Wave on the Feraligatr. The other option he had was just go to Feraligatr and try to sweep straight up. But the issue is, unless he's carrying the perfect moveset to deal with Raiku's team and is able to get a couple flinches off with that Waterfall, it's going to be very difficult for him to break through the combination of Keldeo and the Clefable. Because you're not really going to be running a moveset that's going to be able to hit both of them. And honestly, Keldeo pretty much tanks anything that Feraligatr is going to want to do to it. So his only option really to deal with this Keldeo is just Waterfall flinch it. So I could definitely see Keldeo switching out right now, just sacrifice something like the Garchomp for a little bit of damage on that Feraligatr. Instead, he goes for the Scald, gets the burn, and that's pretty much going to be game, as now Feraligator's not going to do anything. Kevin Cronin strikes once again, and now Feraligatr pretty much dead. So last Mon chance really is just going to be the Clefable, and as you can see, it's superpower Feraligatr, not doing anything to that Keldeo. Gonna throw off one more Scald, gonna get the kill on that Feraligatr. Gonna come down to just the Landorus and just the Clefable. And like I was saying earlier, very difficult for Sam to win a Clefable war when he's against a Calm Mind Clefable with Thunder Wave that Raiku is running, because the paralysis is just gonna put a massive dent in his attempts to set up. And it's just going to push the percentages heavily in Raiku's favor here, especially when you consider that the Clefable has already been knocked off and lost its passive leftover recoveries. It's going to be very difficult for him to win any kind of Clefable war. So honestly, he's kind of got to go for the Calm Mind right here and hope that Raiku stays in, goes for the Scald, and burns. And we get the reverse Kevin Cronin, because otherwise a Thunder Wave would just be awful. And as Sam says in chat right now, if there's a clef, there's a way. And this is really his only shot for redemption here for US Central, though they have really outperformed what anyone thought they would do. Taking Spain to an extremely close series and even making it into the quarterfinals. Not a lot of people predicted them to do it. Generally, the consensus was that Brazil was going to be a lot stronger team than Central, but I think you can really see the power of a team just banding together and, you know, just going for it as a team. So you see Mamoswine coming in. If this is something like a Life Orb Mamoswine, it probably 2-hits the Clefable. and Clefable's not going to be one-shotting back with the Moonblast. And that's going to be an issue because I really don't think there's a way for Sam to win outside of this being something like a Focus Blast Clefable, which is entirely possible but not extremely likely, or to get a critical hit on the Mamoswine. Because otherwise, there's not really any way for him to break it and then come out with a victory in the end. So he's just going to go probably for the Moonblast right here. Running calcs right now, probably just trying to see what his options are. But like I was saying, there's not a whole lot that he can do. And as you can see, that's doing fucking 65% with that Earthquake. And he does survive with 1% health. Even the damage rolls aren't going Sam's way this game. That is going to be U.S. Central out of the tournament. It's going to be Spain into the quarterfinals, where they are going to play Germany, the matchup of the 2 seed versus the 3 seed. Two of the extremely powerful nations in Pokemon in Europe, doing some battle over there for the semifinal spot. And as you can see, the Earthquake is going to be able to take down the Mamoswine, but the Moonblast from Clefable is going to finish that game out. That's going to be the victory for Spain, and Central is out of the tournament. And now we're just down to one more spot in the semifinals to be decided later on today and tomorrow as US West battles Oceania for that last slot to face my team US East in the semifinals. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to my continuous content covering the World Cup of Pokemon. This has been IFM from IFM Studios. Make sure to like and subscribe and check out my other videos because we have just great World Cup Pokemon content in the past and coming up in the future. Going to cover this tournament until the end. Until next time, IFM, I'm out of here.